to my computer because I'm not sure. Hello, hello. Do we have a delight for you today? This is Kathy with La Femme Salon, and very excited about our guest today. She is a calling in the one coach, and it's a powerful process that helps us to align perfectly with just what we've been talking about in our group so far about the divine feminine power. And it's all about acknowledging this beautiful time in our life when we get to step up and shift into that the feminine side to take ownership of our role as creator in all the relationships that are showing up. We're recognizing that at the same time there's kind of a yearning, if you will, in our souls for something new and different. We yearn maybe for that partnership in our lives that with somebody who's smart and strong and communicative. He's loving, he cherishes us, he sees us as an equal, embraces our vision for what we're looking to create next in our lives, and he becomes our greatest uplifter. And like, wow, that sounds like a lot, doesn't it? So there's kind of two scenarios. Women are either in a relationship right now, wishing, oh yeah, I wish he was showing up like that, or the single side, like me, wondering where are these guys and do they even exist? So that's why I'm so happy to be speaking today with Kristin van Tilburg, who is not only a calling in the one coach, she's also a divine feminine coach. So if she's not our girl today to tell us like it is, I don't know who is. So Kristin, please tell us more.
I am so thrilled to talk to you and your audience today. Love is in the air, another week and it'll be Valentine's Day. And don't we all just want to have that really special love that's just being poured out on our lives? And for those of us that are looking for that relationship, how do we really shift into that energy of being in relationship with that special person when we look out there on the horizon and ain't nobody out there? But it's just a powerful way to start to live your life that makes that whole shift in the energy.
Right. And so I see the shift that you're speaking of is about us before we even go out to begin looking for love, is just to slip into that energy of being the love that we seek. So what does that even mean?
Well, you know what? One of the biggest barriers to having this relationship is these unconscious beliefs about ourself, life, and other people that are they're like blinders on a horse. That's one way I like to talk about it. If you're a horse person at all, sometimes they put this little contraption on a horse and it keeps all the peripheral vision out of the view of the horse. And they do that because horses can see out the sides of their eyes, and so they can see way, like 180 degrees, but that makes them skittish because any little energy that pops up over here on this side or that side, it'll startle the horse. And if you're riding a horse, that's kind of a dangerous thing. So sometimes they put these blinders on horses. Well, we've gone through life and had life experiences that have caused us, not consciously, but subconsciously, to put the blinders on. So say you had a relationship with your father that was kind of rocky. I know I did. And there were lots and lots of ways that I had put these blinders on me that was just about what I could have and what would be available to me and what I was worthy of and what I deserved. And with all of that limitation, every little one of those beliefs just makes the field narrower and narrower until the possibilities for you aren't 180 degrees. They're more like, a little sliver out of the middle. And any man that's not right in that little sweet spot, so to speak, is, no, I'm not considering him. Oh, no, that can't be right for me. No, I'm not going there. No, I'm not having that interaction. No, you're not going to treat me like that. No, they have a past or they have some sort of wound. No, that's not right for me. So we just go around putting people on the trash heap constantly. And I'm not saying don't be discerning, but I am saying that these heart connections are made for growth. And so don't be afraid to take on a relationship where you know that you'll need to grow and that the other person will need to grow. Now, I mean, I've had relationships myself where the other person said, no, I'm not interested in growing. So in that case, I don't know what you can do with that. For me, I had to move on, because if you can't grow together, then there's just no point. But it's important that we don't automatically eliminate people that we might have a deep heart synergy with, because you can see that there's a need for growth involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to me because I think, there's different life stages. And as we get to our 50s, or, we kind of had our crash and burn. So like you said, we got our little protectors out, and even we may want to put the walls down somewhat. To me, I feel like there's a limited supply. I don't even think the guy that I'm really looking for exists. So that's kind of a limiting belief. But like you said, I mean, we're looking for such a fine thing that oftentimes we're probably our own we're making it harder than it needs to be, I think.
That's so true. And we want to know that if we invest in a relationship, that it's going to be forever. And sometimes those are just not the way the path has been meant to be constructed. I've had I've had several divorces in my life, and that was never what I wanted when I got married. But a person came into my life I felt this deep soul connection with. We did our work, and then it was time to say goodbye. So that's another place where we really have to let go of these ideas about how it should look, and let the fullness of our heart energy bring things in and carry things out, so that we can be on the path of our greatest expansion. Because I don't know how much research you've done about soulmates, but soulmate relationships are oftentimes very volatile. I mean, we want to have the idea that if I meet my soulmate, it's going to be rainbows and unicorns, and we're going to agree on everything, and it's just going to be a nice, easy ride, and we're never going to fight. Well, you may find a relationship like that, but I'll tell you, more likely than not, that kind of relationship is going to turn into a friendship, because passion comes out of a certain tension, and tension comes out of a certain amount of conflict. So until we really open ourselves up to have something that's vital and alive and passionate and triggering us, so that these wounds come up, until we're out there playing in that kind of playground, the safer relationships, I don't know. I think they're not going to be the fulfilling thing that a lot of women are looking for.
Yeah,
And
and that's
because
an interesting point. It's almost like be careful what you wish for. So be conscious and deliberate about what you're looking for. So if you're looking for somebody to be a companion without the rough spots, then know that that's what you're looking for. But if you're looking for growth, recognize that this is what it comes with too. So I like that. That's a great distinction.
yeah, this deep love, this passionate love, um, there's a lot of tension in it. And when we can embrace that and say, okay, this relationship is meant to be passionate, and that means there's going to be conflict, and I'm going to be right in there. I'm going to tell my truth. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to open my heart. I'm going to play full out and be willing for it to come and go, without having it mean anything about failure on your part or on the part of the other person.
Right. I like the word that you just used, failure. And I see all too often, at least in my interesting point of view, people holding on to relationships just because they're defining success in a relationship by its longevity, rather than the meaning and the personal growth and the companionship that they're getting from it. And I can't say that I've ever shared that point of view. So, how do people come to find that definition for themselves?
Well, you have to decide what you're going to be satisfied with. What do you want? This is what all of us really need to know. What do we want out of these relationships? If you want safety, security, and comfort, there's a certain kind of dynamic there that will provide that. But that's probably not going to also be passionate and alive and vital. So, I think I'm not saying that you can't have comfort and security in a passionate relationship, but you have to define it differently. You know, it's edgy when you're willing to be conflicting with your partner. It's edgy. You can't always say, "Well, I know for sure this is going to turn out all right." But what I know about the couples that are living in these really alive relationships is it turns out all right because they don't quit. They just go the distance, and always there's this greater thing that's been trying to emerge. And when you trust in that, and when you trust in the spirit of love, see, that's where I think maybe some of us are making some mistakes, is we want to place our trust in the other person, and really that's not where our trust belongs. Our trust belongs in our connection to source, so source
That
can
just
bring
gave me shivers. I love that.
trust. God will bring you into a relationship, and he may take you out of it as well. And if you're aligned with that aspect of yourself, then you're okay with hello, and you're also okay with goodbye.
Which is a good question. Like, how do you know when it's time for a goodbye, or how do you know when it's time for us to take greater responsibility, like for what we're doing? You know, how can we contribute to the relationship in a different way? You know what I'm saying? So how do you know when it's just the relationship has run its course versus I'm not playing wholeheartedly and in integrity with who I need to be?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it's an important question for everybody to know the answer to it out of their own experience. But what I would say is that when your primary alignment is with your own source energy, then you're not going into a relationship looking to get your needs met. This is a huge, huge problem. There is just no one single person that is going to meet all your needs. Mm-hmm. And too many times women look into this stereotype of a good relationship, and you know, you've seen a movie or you've seen a television show or you read fairy tales where they live happily ever after, and so you think, I'm going to meet this man and he's going to meet my needs and we're going to be together forever, and that's it on that.
And I get a white horse.
Right. You know, and a white picket fence and a house and a new car every 2 years. I mean, we have a living, right? But in these days and times, that's not what life is about. At least not in the energetic circles that I travel in. It's about growth. It's about evolution. It's about transformation. And for me, one of my big little phrases is the embodying love, which means not really depending on that identity as Kristin, which has all this history and has all these, you know, attachments to material things. This embodiment of love is just out there passionately giving and passionately receiving, and with lots of people, not trying to put everything into this one little basket called a marriage. No, my life is big and full, and people are coming in, and sometimes people are going out, and it's alive and vital, and that alignment with my source is what begins to tell me, hey, you know, I could keep this relationship going, but I'm going to have to start shutting down parts of myself. Mm-hmm. We're conflicted here, we're conflicted there, and there's not going to be a compromise on some of these things. So if you find yourself in that situation, the honest thing to do is to realize that if you can't remain in integrity with who you are, mm-hmm. and be in this relationship, that's a pretty clear message that even though you might love that person, and nobody's saying that the love has gone anywhere. Mm-hmm. To me, if you stop loving somebody, you didn't love them to begin with. Love is an eternal expression of infinite connection. Wow. It doesn't start and stop. But your desire to be in a committed partnership, now that can change. And sometimes it needs to change. And the aliveness that you will find if you can embrace that willingness to let go of this safe, secure thing that isn't working, and stand in the face of uncertainty and say, my connection with my own loving essence will sustain me. I'm going to go for a vitality and a passion. That's what we need to stay young.
Oh my gosh, I just love so many of the words that you've just brought up. That, I mean, what a beautiful word to put to relationship to begin with, of just being alive. The relationship itself is almost an entity of itself, and it becomes alive in and of itself. But another thing, as you were speaking, and you know, I've had my own fair share, my similar to you, and I think probably a lot of people who'd be watching, and women, especially at our age, you know, those dads were some of the first out of the depression age, you know, kids. And so those dads at that point in time didn't have the freedom that dads do now. So a lot of them weren't present. So regardless of what their relationship was, there's a lot of abandonment and trust issues for women in our kind of age right now. So I think a lot of times the defense mechanisms, we became strong and independent, and that almost wall kept us from the real intimacy that I think we yearn for. So it's kind of like, and you know, I was afraid they'd leave, so I was always cutting off arms and legs to fit into what I thought they thought the, you know, their wife or beloved needs to show up as. So I that was my pattern for a long time. And yeah. Interesting. But like you said, something else really powerful just struck me in what you said, is everywhere we're putting projections of what we think the guy needs to show up as, it's almost like an unkindness, because it doesn't let your beloved show up just as his essential self. So wow, how do you put those projections, pack those away after you maybe been holding those for decades?
Well, that's a great question, and I'd love to explore that a little bit. What I think women need to do in order to really be fulfilled and stable in their own identity is learn how to identify and meet their own needs. So, if you want, we could run through a little process, and the people in your group, they might get something out of this about really how do you start to build that relationship with yourself.
That would be phenomenal.
Okay, well, let's just take a minute then, and if it's safe for you to do so, close your eyes. If not, you can totally participate with your eyes open. But the purpose of closing your eyes, if it's safe, is just to really let go of what the external world is communicating to you, no matter where you are, and just shift your awareness into this interior environment that is your own self, your own heart. So just close your eyes and move into that space and begin to notice your breath. And as you're noticing your breath, you're feeling your chest rising and falling. And just notice that that's been occurring all day long, all week long, all year long, your whole lifetime long. Never once, I'm guessing, did you write, I need to breathe my breath today on your to-do list. It's actually the most fundamental trust relationship that we have with life, that we trust life to breathe our breath for us. We trust it so completely that we have no awareness of it. But life is there with every inhale, inspiring you with loving energy, with every exhale, giving you the opportunity to release what isn't serving you anymore. So as you come into that deep connection with yourself, the essence of you, that thing that is still you, that is breathing your breath and beating your heart, just looking around your body for places of tension or pain or contraction, discomfort of any kind, and just sending your focus to the place that's the loudest in terms of discomfort. And just noticing what it is, really letting yourself feel into it. What shape is it? What size is it? What color is it? And as you get really connected to that place, just gently putting out the question, what do you need? And we won't spend too long with that because of our situation here, but if you do this on your own, make the commitment to really listen and ask the question over and over. What do you need? What do you need from me? And when you feel like that has been completely communicated to you, shift to the question, what am I feeling? And again, just pause this recording if you can and just take your time. What emotional states are associated with this place of discomfort? And then bring yourself back. And again, we won't necessarily take the time now, but when you're doing this on your own, spend a few moments journaling or just get a piece of paper or your tablet or however you write your thoughts down and just capture all the experiences that you just had. So Kathy, is there anything not too personal that came up that you'd like to share that we could kind of work with for a minute here?
Uh, so I'm at an interesting point because for a long time I've enjoyed being single and I've had some, nice relationships along the way. And then just it's all of a sudden this yearning now, I'm like ready for a life partner. So when you said, what is it that you need? Um, it's just the word believe came up, just it's sort of like that trust of just trusting that the universe is unfolding. And just as this desire has been given to me, so too, if I allow it in its time to unfold, this can be revealed as well. And what do I need would be, again, just that trust in the process of unfolding. So
Beautiful. Did it associate with a place in your body?
it did, right around the navel.
Uh-huh. And did it have a color or a shape?
It was kind of like a brown blob.
See, that's just so important. You know, we say that we want to love ourselves. That's a term that comes up a lot in the women's world, that we should love ourselves. But oftentimes when I work with women, they don't do this little simple process of actually feeling into their physical body for these places. You know, a lot of times very into working out and maybe even getting massages and stuff, but when it comes down to this actual relatedness inside our own physical bodies where there are these places of discomfort, and the way that I see this is they are screaming. I mean, especially the more uncomfortable they are, they're saying something. And when we can touch those places with compassion, like you did, this brown blob around my navel, what are you feeling? What are you needing? Well, I'm needing this intimate connection. I'm needing this sense of a partner that will travel with me at this part of my life. Oh, okay. And what are my feelings about that? Well, now you didn't say this, but it might be loneliness, it might be a certain emptiness, or it might just be a sense of being called into a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, a trust, wanting to trust that process and let it carry you somewhere that's outside your comfort zone. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, yeah. And I would say like it's unlike anything that I've experienced up until this point. So it's sort of like stepping into something that I don't even know where and again, I've had a long time belief that what I'm looking for, because I think I've thought into that either or kind of a thing. Either I get to have my career and my freedom, or I get partnership.
Oh, well, that's really interesting to look at that, because it's amazing how life can meet our needs. But a lot of times, one of the things that we have to do is let go of trying to control how it looks.
Mhm.
And I lost my partner 3 years ago. He died. But when I met him, I met him on Match.com, and he actually lied to me about his age. So I had completely fallen in love with him, thinking he was 10 years older than me, and nothing physical to, I mean, actually, he was in better shape than I was. I had no trouble thinking that he was only 10 years older than me. Well, I found out accidentally that he was 19 years older than me. And I was so upset when I found that out. First, that he lied, and second, that he was that much older than me. And my head was just filled with all of this meaning that I was making out of it. This is not going to work. He's not an honest person. And of course, the relationship just went right on the altar. It's like, I don't think that I can do this. And then as I started to think about it and really be with it in my heart, I went past my ideas of what was right for me, and I felt the heart connection that I had with him. And it was an amazing, powerful connection. And so I asked myself, was I willing to surrender to the love that had come into my life?
Wow, what a powerful question.
Was I willing to let go of what my thoughts were about this love, about this partner? It wasn't what I wanted. It was not what I wanted, to fall in love with a man that was 19 years older than me. I mean, that made him, 72 years old when I fell in love with him. Yeah. And like I said, he was a horseman. He was athletic. He would go buy these bales. He had 8 horses on his ranch, and he would go buy these bales of hay for the horses. They weighed 150 pounds, and he would just pick them up and sling them out of the truck. It was like, this guy was amazing. Was I actually going to cut off this deep love connection that was there from the very first moment that we started communicating, because of the date on his birth certificate? I decided no.
Wow.
And we 7 of the most beautiful years. We went traveling around the world. We did things that I never expected that I would do. And the love between us was so rich and full, and not like any other relationship I had ever had. And then he died. He was 79 years old when he died. His health all of a sudden just went to hell, and a couple months later he was gone. And I asked myself, would I give up the 7 years that we had together in order not to go through the pain of his death? The answer was hell no. Are you kidding me? If I could erase all that we did, all the memories we shared, all the beautiful experiences we had, if I could erase all that to go back and look for a younger man, would I do that? No. No. He was a unique proposition, and there will never be another one of him in this world. And I'm glad that I had to pay the price of losing him, if it meant that we had those 7 years together.
Yeah. How amazing. I love just seeing you speak about him, because every time you just light up. It's so fun. So it's obvious.
I just invite anybody to let go of their list if they feel this heart connection with somebody. Now, I'm not saying, settle for less than what you want, but I am saying go with the energy. Don't go with your head so much. Let your heart lead you in this deep connected process, because it's life changing, no matter how it ends. the process of you aligning. I mean, that's the other thing, Kathy. Let me just say this one more thing and we can move on from this topic. But after he died, you know, it was so devastating. And he was such a larger than life person that he left this enormous empty place in my life. Mm. But what happened is I learned to cope with the grief was a wave of grief would lift me up and I would just be undone. But when I was able to just let myself be in that grief, when the wave came down, it came down on the other side, and the other side, the love is still there.
Wow. Wow.
I don't have the comfort of his physical presence, but in an instant, I can be with the love that we shared. It is not gone. It is not lost to me. And when I discovered that, it changed the trajectory of how I started to rebuild my life, because it was like a total reset.
Right. And how do you carry on after something like that? It's a super powerful thing, because I think oftentimes, regardless of how the relationship has ended, I think all too often in our society, we rush to try to put it behind us. And it's like, to me, there needs to be a certain reconciliation. And I like you, think if I've loved somebody at one point in time, just because things ended badly, if it did, or whatever, that there's still that spark and that contribution that the person was in our lives. So how do you come to the space of disconnecting in a loving way?
It's so important to do that. It's really, really important. And the big way to do that is to take responsibility for your feelings and not allow yourself to say, he did this to me. Because, you know, a lot of relationships end because of a betrayal or some sort of deceit. And those are terrible things. And I'm not trying to say that anybody that has betrayed you or deceived you didn't do you wrong. But the question is, what opportunity has that brought into your life? What strength can that build into your character? How can you be more aligned with this source energy so that in the future you're not trusting somebody that's not trustworthy?
Yeah. Well, for me, I had the pattern of attracting the emotionally unavailable, because I was showing up that way. And it took me a few crash and burns and many repetitions of that pattern before I realized that it was me with the heart wall so thick, I wasn't letting these poor guys in. So there was no place else for them to go. If they wanted to be loved, they had to go someplace else, because I wasn't able to be open-hearted with them. So, you know, like I said, unfortunately, it took me a couple repetitions, but boy, when I did, I mean, there's no turning back. You know, I get it now.
That is so exciting. And it takes such courage to face that kind of pattern and admit it. And that's why a lot of people really do need some sort of coach or advisor to go through this thing, because I'm sure that the circumstances, if you were to lay them out, we could all agree that those people did you wrong, or things weren't, you know, something. We could agree that you had been the victim. And if we did that, you would never have this incredible insight and never have the opportunity to perceive yourself and other people in a different way. I so admire you for that, Kathy. That is really good work.
I don't know about that. I just got to the point where I just couldn't stand. I'm like, I'm not repeating this one more time. Like, and then finally, you know, after buying into the victim story, oh, he cheated on me, you know, again, whatever. It was like, finally, what am I doing? Until I showed up in a way that I wanted to be, with this wholehearted connection. And that day, my life changed. I had some energy work done with a fellow I was working with, but yeah, it's never even crossed my mind, because I'm different. So, yeah. So how about the people who are married, and maybe it's, you know, they've been 7+ years with somebody, and it feels like the passion is gone. And what I hear sometimes is, he just doesn't see me anymore, or we're just, you know, growing apart, or that kind of a thing. How does somebody take responsibility for the relationship and revive it in that kind of situation?
Well, there's a process called the dialogue process that I think, I mean, it does take two. if you're in a relationship with a man, and in fact, I was watching that Sex and the City movie again the other day,
Mhm.
and Carrie is and Big have finally gotten married after all these years, and they have their dream home and their dream jobs and their dream relationship, and now Big puts a television in the bedroom. And Carrie's like, no, we're not going to end up like this. And, I mean, the movie didn't really go in the direction that I want to talk to us about. But what happened in the movie is Carrie ended up kissing some other man, and that just totally cracked open this little cocoon that they had lived in, and they did have to start communicating to each other. It wasn't a big part of the movie, the movie was over at that point, but this dialogue process, there are lots of ways to learn it. It was invented by a married couple named Harville Hendrix and his wife Linda, and I believe it's Linda. Anyway, Harville Hendrix for sure. And what happened is they are a married couple, and they had been teaching and training marriage counselors for years and years and years, and they'd been married for a long time. Well, what happened in secret is their relationship had hit the rocks.
Oh.
And they were thinking they were going to have to tell this global community that they were getting a divorce. Well, you can imagine the pressure on them to try to sort it out. And what happened out of this insane pressure to not have to get divorced, they found this new level of dialogue with each other that completely revitalized their marriage and allowed them to go in front of the community and say, look, here's what happened. We almost didn't make it, but in the process, here it is, an opportunity. The opportunity for us was to find a deeper way to talk to each other. And out of that, this dialogue process was born. So there are books about it. There's workshops. You can go with your partner for a weekend workshop. They have them all over the world, and learn this process. And then when you live together with this commitment for more honest and open communication, that's what will bring the relationship out of these sort of little dead places that we all get into.
Yeah. What if your guy doesn't want to go with you?
Well, I can't, there's just not a one size fits all answer to that. I wish there was. But in each individual circumstance, the woman has to decide what is she willing to accept for herself. And if she is absolutely sure that she wants a partner who will communicate with her, then that's, like I said, a beginning of a conversation with yourself about how important is this to me really? Is it so important that I'm willing to tear apart a long marriage, happy or unhappy? And if not, maybe you can find that kind of deep connection and fulfillment with women friends or with a volunteer position. So there's just no easy answer there, but I love working with people and helping them open those doors, because the bottom line is there is a way for you to be fulfilled and enjoy your life. And sometimes it means taking the pressure off your mate and expanding other parts of yourself. And other times it means facing up to a situation where we've gone as far as we can go. Right. And not being afraid to take that step into uncertainty.
Yeah. And so I guess that kind of comes into like that conversation of the divine feminine to some extent, like what is the divine feminine anyways, if you could just define it for us.
Yeah, well, it's harder to do that than to talk about the masculine, because we live in such a masculine culture. There are other cultures in the world that are so rooted in the divine feminine that they have more of a problem identifying the masculine. But so for us, the masculine is goal oriented, and it's process oriented, and it's analytical, and it's strategic, and it's tactical, and it's, have your 5-year plan. All of that is masculine energy, and it's excellent. And there's nothing whatsoever wrong with it. But when any human, not male or female, any human lives only in that part of themselves, then there's a disconnection from the source, the energetic source of all creative expression, which is the divine feminine. It's very much like what the womb is. The womb is a physical expression of the divine feminine. That is the source of creativity, fertility, new life, and relatedness, deep connection, intimacy. That kind of thing is all in the domain of the divine feminine. And oftentimes there's a chaotic aspect to it because it's not predictable, it's not consistent, it's alive here and it's alive there. It's like when spring blooms in your garden and there's tulips and there's daffodils and there's jonquils and it's a riot of color. That's the divine feminine coming out of that deep sleep of winter and moving into the light of spring. Did that answer your question, or
Yeah,
was that?
yeah, I love the visual that goes along with that too, kind of that explosive thing. So what are some of the keys to like tapping in to that for yourself, but in relationship as well?
Well, one of the big things for women is this process that we were talking about earlier. What are you feeling and what do you need? Because when you live up in your head full of strategies and analysis and tactics and plans, a lot of times from here down, it can be, you don't know what's going on. I had a client who's a financial planner. She's a brilliant woman. You talk about the markets and you want to talk about the charts and the graphs and the this and the that. She is your girl. But when I started working with her, she was absolutely miserable. Here she is, a successful businesswoman, happily married, and totally miserable, thinking about selling this business that she had worked so hard to create, because it was just driving her crazy. Everybody else's needs were on her to-do list. Her own needs, she didn't know what they were. When we started working together, she just told me flat out, I don't know what I feel. I don't know what I need.
Yeah.
And so we had to go through this process of every day. She had to practice being in touch with looking for those places in her body where there was tension or pain or discomfort, and associating to them and asking, what are you feeling and what do you need? And that process actually has a whole nother dimension of connecting back in with the younger self. And that's an important part too. It's just too much to go into today. But that is the way that you begin to cultivate the divine feminine within, is to realize that if you're asking that question, you may be living, from your chin up.
Yeah.
And you have to find ways to get into your body, dancing, yoga, things that force you out of the external world and push you into your inner space, is the most empowering way to begin to cultivate a relationship with the divine feminine.
Yeah. Like how you said that the inner space, it almost makes that kind of an adventure in a way, and exploration, which, like you said, we might have been busy with roles up until now that have fallen away. And it's like, that's the number one thing that I see, is that the people just really don't have clarity about what it is that they want and who they want to be. And
When you devoted your life to a husband and children, and all
Mhm.
of a sudden the nest is empty and you're sitting there, that is a little bit like the death that I went through with my partner. There is a major reset that's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
And it can be the most exciting time of your life, because finally all these other needs that had to take priority, when a child is sick in the night, you have to get up and handle it. It doesn't matter if you if your own self-care is interfered with, and when your baby's crying, you have to get up and deal with it. But when that nest is finally empty and there's no one to wake you up in the middle of the night, that may be when you wake up in the middle of the night, and then you have to say, well, what am I needing right now?
Yeah. And it's empowering when you get to the other side. You start to ask those deep questions and reconnect with the essential self. I was speaking with a client the other day, and we were talking about, she felt she was having a breakdown. I'm like, no, you're having a break in. Like, you get to go in now and ask those questions and birth that new growth. Like, I love the spring analogy. That's so vibrant. I could just see and feel that excitement of new life coming, because that's truly what it is.
Yeah, and when we know to hold it in that context in our heart, it's so much easier, because it's our tendency is to look out and say, oh, you know, I'm all alone, my nest is empty, my kids are gone, they still love me, but they're only going to be here a couple of times a year, and my husband's still busy with his job. What am I going to do? Well, there's a way of looking at that, of like, there's infinite possibilities. You know, what is something that I always wanted to do that I never did, and make a list of those things, and then just start going places and doing things.
Yeah,
And
it's almost a time to really get super selfish. I think we're so, up until then, all those roles, like you said, they're outward focused, and I see so many times where the women are married and that they've got this great supportive man, and he's just waiting for her to decide what it is. You know, Tony Robbins would say the number one goal for the man is to see his wife or beloved happy. So here we are trying to think, well, you know, kind of in that context of what is right for us. It's like, no, no, no. What is right for you? What is right? What's your soul calling for at this next juncture? It can be a whole new beginning, time to refresh those. Maybe there's dreams that they put on the back burner for all that time, that painting, the travel, whatever it is, but a whole new sense of adventure at this time. So yeah, it's hard for us to break that don't want to be selfish kind of a thing. You know, it's
well, and it's self-care and self-nurturing is a whole different dimension. And again, that relatedness to yourself, and that includes not only these places of darkness and holding, but also the places of light, you know, the dreams, the aspirations, the desires. Those things are all communicating too. And when we can have a balanced focus of wanting to express ourselves through our dreams, and also being committed to relating to ourselves deeply inside, that's when life really starts to be a joyride. And sometimes people need help with that, as you know, Kathy. Sometimes it's not easy for us to ask these questions on our own. We need some guidance and support. So when you have the opportunity to get that, whether it's start a ladies group, you know, if finances don't permit hiring a coach, or having a professional relationship, just getting together with friends. And oh gosh, the number of books out there
yeah.
is just overwhelming. So there's always resources if you're willing to try something new.
Yeah. And again, I'm just thinking of a number of people that I know that they're at that juncture, and the guy doesn't seem as if he's on a growth path, and the woman is feeling unseen. I really challenge them to go ahead and do this journey on their own then, if he's not willing to go for now, because by her choosing for herself and showing up different in the relationship, he has to, you know, by association, he's going to be interacting with her differently because she's showing up as different. The energy is different. So, and
That's
then you get to choose. It's either going to work or it's not at that point in time, you know.
Yeah. Well, just to fall back on that silly movie again, you know, when Carrie came back from the Middle East having kissed this other man, and Big was so mad at her, but when they finally came into the same room, he came into the room with a diamond ring. And he said, I hated what happened here, but what I realized is I am not cherishing you properly. And she didn't go over there with the intention of him having that realization. She went over there to be with her girlfriends and do this thing. And, you know, if you haven't seen the movie, it's really fun. But the point is, she was following her bliss. And it unfolded in a way that was transformational for the marriage.
Very cool. So how does it end up? She got the big closet for all the shoes, right?
You really should see the movie. It's just fun. I just hate to, I mean, I've already kind of spoiled the ending, but you know, have a happy ending. Because the truth is, when you're an empowered woman, you create a happy ending. It's not so much that we expect a happy ending, and that's what Hollywood has to give us. It's that when a woman owns her power, she takes responsibility for her own joy. And there's even some joy in having some of these conflicts, because this tension that I was talking about, it's growth producing. So when you can hold even the conflicts inside a bigger vision of growth and transformation, then even the worst moments can have a certain beauty to them. And that's what this movie that's what I saw when I watched it anyway.
You just said a couple things that are just so powerful. Just this one statement: a divine feminine female takes responsibility for her own joy. And when you think of that, it just seems like it takes so much pressure off the relationship. Like you were talking about originally, of how much pressure we put on the relationship to be our source of joy. It's like, no. You get to source your own joy and allow this relationship. I can't think of anything better than relationship to be that mirror for us to see, are we really being integrous with what it is that we say we want to grow into to begin with. So yeah, so powerful what you just said. I love that.
Well,
Yeah.
that is so important, because men get tired. They want to
Yeah.
make us happy. All these, men are from Mars, women are from Venus books, they all tell us men want to make us happy, but when we can't take responsibility for our own joy, subconsciously we end up withholding that joy, trying to get them to be who we want them to be, and there's no joy there for either party. That's an old plan that just doesn't work. We have to come at life a different way.
Yeah, I like that. It's just an old plan. That's just an old plan. And there's been so many old plans when it comes to relationship up until now. It's like now I feel like we're at a new age. Especially I was reading, the happily ever after. I'm like, where the heck did that even come from? It's like back in Italy 400 years ago. So it's not even that old. But back then people only lived to be about 40 years old. So it kind of made sense you would have one love, all your life. But now, especially with quickening of time and how quickly we can grow and change and blossom into something new, it only makes sense that you would have these different partners for different stages of your lives, and you get to define it the way that works. I like the idea of, here's for this period, and I get to ante up again when we get to that point. I want to know that somebody's there because they've chosen to be, not because they've made a commitment to an institution.
Oh my gosh, yes. And for the people that works for, more power to them. It just wasn't my thing.
Yeah, been a rich life. So
I have a friend that's been married for 40 years, and it's not for me to judge their relationship, but when I see them together, there's a fondness, but it's kind of a flat thing. And before my sweetheart died, I mean, there was passion there. There was passionate love there. I have this thought that it would be so great to have a 40-year marriage, but I wouldn't want one that was flatlined.
mm-hmm.
If that's the price, that was too high a price for me to pay.
Yeah, I love that. And so
It doesn't have to be the price at all, but if that is what's turned out to be the case. But again, that dialogue process, people flatline a lot of times because they've just identified all these topics where we can't talk about that, we can't talk about that, we can't talk about that. So they're not talking about some of the most essential things and the juicy things in their own lives. And so of course the relationship has gotten really flat.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think sometimes we avoid those conversations because we want to hold on to the relationship. We don't want to risk losing it. So we don't have the conversation. So it's like the silly catch-22 that happened. So
Well, people don't want to have the same damn fight for the 50 millionth time. And I hear that, but that's why this dialogue process is so exciting, is it breaks up these conversational patterns and conflict patterns, and it creates a completely different way of being with an upset in a relationship. It's really worth checking out.
Okay.
Exciting.
Oh, that and we can't talk about relationships without talking about finance, because I know that's one of the top reasons that things can fall apart. So especially, I think of divine feminine female, and to some extent, I think we sometimes throw in too much of an independence part of it. Like, how are there some guidelines or tips that you have as if people are coupled and want to have the freedom to when they're in, okay, so I'll just reveal. When I was married, we just threw everything into the common pot, and then I felt guilty spending money on the things that would be kind of like female stuff. So back in the day, I was married a long time ago, so it was perms. You'd get your hair permed, and I didn't want to spend the money because I felt like that was selfish because it was our money. um, what kind of tips do you have when people have money things? And I've seen it the other extreme where they have completely separate, and to me that also felt restrictive because there was a certain resentment about he's not putting in towards the common goals and what I see to be fair.
Yeah, again, it's, in my opinion, there's a tip kind of thing isn't going to work. There are two people involved in a relationship, and they have their own values, and hopefully, if they've chosen their partner well, they have significant shared values. But sometimes in the financial world, like a perm might to you mean I feel sexier and I feel more attractive and I feel like my beauty is enhanced with that, and your partner could look at it and say, that's $45 that we don't need to be spending like that, never realizing that when you don't have your perm, then it comes time to go to the bedroom and you're feeling, oh, my straight hair, and whatever these little stories are. And if the man knew that $45 for the perm was going to get him better sex for an entire month or 6 weeks, my guess would be there'd be no problem then.
Mm-hmm.
If he really could get that's your way of making yourself attractive to him and to yourself. But that's the kind of dialogue that people don't know how to have.
Yeah.
So they get into these situations where their values around money are not the same, and instead of being able to have a productive conversation, they just have these terrible fights. And also money can also kind of hold the blame for stuff that's actually not really about money. So I don't really have tips there other than just to say that's an area where you really need some communication skills. So
Yeah, but and as you said, how powerful it is to, I would hope that my partner would be somebody who'd be interested in having coaching along the way. We hire a coach to play better golf or to play better tennis or, these things. It's like, what is more important than having a partnership that becomes your part of your lifeblood, your zest for life. And to be able to have some touch points to, even from the beginning, to help get super clarity around the aligned values and the direction that you want your togetherness to unfold as.
exactly.
Yeah, super.
Well, I think that if men don't know the difference between coaching and therapy, that's an area where a little education might be in order.
Mm.
Because in the old days, when a couple had a problem and they went to therapy, there was a lot of digging around in the past and emotional wounding and stuff that to the man who's had to be trained to deny his feelings, not only was this not fun, it was downright threatening. So dragging a man to therapy, and I tried this, I'm speaking from experience, is totally counterproductive. But coaching is different. I mean, sometimes you do end up having some emotional clearing work to do, but coaching is about building on the strengths. And when a couple goes to relationship coaching, the whole goal is not to root around in the past and wallow
Mhm.
in pain and sorrow. It's about building a shared foundation of relating that makes both people happier. So I would definitely make sure that my man understood that difference when I was trying to put that option on the table.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
Well, I am, my website that I'm really present in right now is called embodiedlove2.com. And I have been exploring the topic of miracles. And over the holidays, I did a miracle summit. I had 64 miracle stories that people shared with me. And so this year for me is a lot about miracle creation, how to do it, how to be present so that it's a space around you that happens for you. And so you can find me on Facebook and the Embodied Love Mastery group, or my page is Embodied Love Facebook page, Embodied Love 2, or my website is embodiedlove2.com. And always the more the merrier for the miracle party as far as I'm concerned. There is a mindset that allows miracles to happen, and I'm all about building that in myself and bringing as many people with me as I can.
Now that's a train I want to hop on. So I am there with your girlfriend. And embodied love with the number 2. I'll put it below, but just to make sure that you find Kristin, because this is definitely, it's a year for miracles. And the more we can plug into together to create that space within ourselves, like, and be in a space where we celebrate them together. I think that's so important, because the more we start looking for the miracles, and start with the little ones and they grow bigger and bigger. You get in that flow state, and every week can have miracles. So
Yeah, after the summit, I did a 20-day miracle challenge. So there are 20 videos in the Embodied Love Mastery group that are ways that women can, concrete ways to open up that miracle creation space in themselves, totally free, just there for anybody that wants to poke around and hit play.
but only do if you want a miracle in your life. Otherwise, just, yeah.
You don't want any miracles, don't go there, because
Yeah, don't do it. Oh my gosh, this has been a complete joy. Thank you so much for spending the time with us, and thank you for the love that you're putting out there in the world. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I just wish everybody could experience this kind of mindset and the tools that you share, and just feeling grateful for you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm thrilled to be invited. It's certainly a topic that I love to talk about. You know, the Dalai Lama said that Western women were going to save this world, and I totally get where he was coming from when he said that. We have unprecedented access to everything that we need to bring the fullness of our love into our bodies and out into the world.
Mm.
And not all the women in the world can say that. So it's really on us to just hear these calls, um, to serve and to be fulfilled yourself first. I mean, not any more of this martyrdom where I'm going to give until I'm nothing but a limp rag on the ground, but to
As
find those
sexy as
things,
that sounds.
but to find those things inside your heart that are the true expression of who you are, and just clear the path so that you can be that in the world. A new decade, 2020 numerologically, it's all about relationship,
Yeah.
not just man woman, but human to human, and how we can create communities so that this world can be the thriving, joyful heaven on earth place that I know God had in mind when it all got started. Thank you, Kathy.
And
Thank you, friends, for your time today. Thrilled to have been with you.
so thank you. And I don't know how to end this. It's just been so beautiful, but wishing you all the
Bye for now. That's what I like
okay.
to say.
All right.
It's not too big of a commitment. We're just bye for now, but we can talk again sometime. And I would love that. Have me back anytime.
Okay. Thank you so much. You all take care. Bye bye.
Big love.